Hey guys, welcome to Writing Notes. So this edition is going to talk a bit about two pretty similar things. We're going to talk about abstracts and we're going to talk about proposals. Now, the first thing I want to clarify is that there's different kinds of abstracts. And I'm talking not about like marriage proposals, obviously. I'm talking about like proposals for a researched argument or something like this. So the first thing, though, I want to clarify is what I mean by abstracts. And there's two different kinds of abstracts. One is a sort of speculative abstract, and this would be something that, for instance, I might send to a literary conference if I was applying to, for instance, the Comparative Drama Conference or Modern Language Association Conference or something like that. I'd send them an abstract, which is a short sort of explanation of what it is that my paper is or will be about. The other is a more sort of specific, is a specific component of an actual paper itself. So, for instance, you get abstracts a lot of the time with science papers, psychology, sociology, things like this, medical papers. It's a short explanation of what the main argument of the paper is. And in one case, it's a sort of purely theoretical thing. So if I send something to a conference, they say, yes, that sounds good, we want that paper, and then generally nothing else happens with it. The other type of abstract is more formal, and it becomes a component of like an APA style paper. Like an APA paper, the full APA formatting has an abstract component to it. So, that being said, they both function in very similar ways. So basically, what an abstract does, what a proposal does, is introduce the reader to the main argument that you're trying to make in a larger paper, and it establishes what's at stake in making that argument. So the idea here is that you have something fairly short. Generally you're looking somewhere between 200 and 500 words, which by the sort of standards of publishing and the standards of conference presentations and things like that is quite short. So the idea here is that you give the reader a key idea, what it is that this project is actually about, what arguments you're making, and then you set the stakes. So this is why this is an important argument. This is why this is something that you should accept to your conference, that you should publish, whatever it is, whatever the specific stakes are for that project. And the thing that's tricky about abstracts and proposals is that you need to move very, very efficiently through them. So if you have, for instance, an 8-page research paper, a 10-page research paper, you have space to develop ideas. You don't have a ton of space, but you have space to develop your ideas. If you've got 200 words, very little space. So you need to be very efficient about it. So for me, the way that I tend to structure my abstracts is very, very formulaic. And I'll give you guys this formula. This would be abstracts or proposals. The way that I tend to structure them is an introductory sentence that starts to establish the stakes. So, for instance, I'm thinking about a paper that I just got accepted to a conference for, and it's about fish and fishing in the Shakespeare play Pericles, Prince of Tyre. So, the first sentence basically says, even though there's a ton of Shakespeare scholarship, not that many people have worked on eco-criticism about oceans and about saltwater issues. So I've identified a sort of need, I've identified a gap in scholarship. The next sentence is my thesis. which is basically that fishing provides a material basis for a material and ideological basis for empire in Pericles. The next sentence lays out a slight elaboration of my argument. So here are some things that I'm going to be looking at. And then I move to the next paragraph. And I've actually got 3 paragraphs in this abstract. The second one talks a little bit about Pericles itself. So I identify a key scene, I identify a key component of the play, and I give a very, 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 3-sentence abbreviated version of my argument about that scene. Then the last paragraph in the abstract gives a bit more information about the scholarship that I'm working with. So in this case, I make reference to Steve Mentz and Dan Brayton, both of whom have books about Shakespeare, the ocean, and environmental studies. So basically the way that I set this abstract up is a sort of general introduction strategy, set the hook, use an attention grabber, then very quickly into the thesis, slight elaboration. Here's one key component of the argument in about a 3-sentence paragraph. Here's a second key component of the argument in another 3-sentence paragraph. And then you're done. What's tricky, what's challenging, and what takes a lot of practice about writing a good proposal or a good abstract is that because you have such a limited space, every word, every sentence needs to be doing as much compositional and as much rhetorical work as it possibly can. Again, unlike with a larger paper, you don't have the space to be digressive, you don't have the space to just sort of say, oh, I'm wandering through the forest and whatever. Everything has to be on point. Now, with a proposal, you may have a bit more space. You may have 2 pages or whatever it is, 3 pages in some cases. So with a proposal, you can be a bit more speculative. The other thing about proposals is that they typically come before the actual project, whereas an abstract may be sort of retrospective. So you may already have the paper written when you go to write the abstract, and you say, here's what this paper has done. With a proposal, you're generally getting ready to write a paper. And you say, this is what I think this paper is going to do. I'm going to explore these ideas. These are some concepts. There's something important here. I'm not totally sure yet what I'm going to do with it, where it's going to go, and so on and so on. So this is the main sort of difference between proposals and abstracts, is that proposals will generally be a bit more speculative. We'll say, here is something I want to work with. It may or may not have a fully sort of nailed down thesis statement, but generally proposals and abstracts are going to work in very similar ways. So short, very efficient, very rhetorically crafted, and so on and so on. And again, the goal here being give the thesis, capture the reader's attention, and explain what the stakes are for the argument that you're making. Thanks for watching.